G'day, I'm Paul. So a little while ago, we reviewed the Tesla Model Y L. It had literally just been announced. We had a chance to jump behind the wheel briefly, and I promised that we'd bring it back to the proving ground to see how it drives, and for me to run you through a bit more detail after spending more time in the car. So here it is, the Tesla Model Y L. It's priced at around $75,000, so it's a $6,000 price jump over a standard Model Y long range. But you do get a stack more features with a bigger battery and a much longer driving range of over 600 kilometers. So it kind of feels like the right sort of spot to be in. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit more detail on what it's like inside and also what it's like to drive as well. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you've got time codes up on the screen there. And by the way, if you do want to see our last video on this, there is a link in the description below where I went through a lot more detail about the second and third rows and gave you my initial impressions as well. So let's talk about the design first. I went over this in the other review, but from the outside, it kind of looks the same. Where you are really going to notice the difference is if you come around here, you've got different suspension beneath the skin. This gets adaptive damping, which was previously only reserved for the Performance. This gives you the ability to pick between two different suspension modes, and this is something I've had the chance to test out quite extensively. So when we go for a drive, I'll run you through what the actual difference is there. The other thing you notice as well is as we move towards the back of the car, it's sitting on a longer wheelbase. So that is the distance between the center of the front wheel and the rear wheel, and that means more legroom inside, and also gives them the ability to integrate a third row without completely robbing you of space. And you can see here from the side profile, it does look a little bit different because the glass house goes all the way to the back here, where the glass house normally terminates a little earlier and it has a more sort of cohesive finish to it. This goes all the way to the back and it looks like a very rear heavy vehicle when you look at it. It's only really when you sort of spend a bit more time going over the dimensions here that it does look a little bit different there. So importantly, it's not oversized. It doesn't feel too big to drive. You've got really adequate tires as well, 275 wide rear tires, and that means you have a increased contact patch with the road, and it should mean in theory that it gives you better road holding, which we'll test out shortly. But come around to the back with me, I'll show you what all this looks like. Now, the first thing you'll notice back here is this spoiler that protrudes out the back. That's basically the end point of that window and gives you the downforce that this needs. Because of the different dimensions here, you have to kind of re-engineer the way the car drives. You can't just go extend the wheelbase and just sign it off and away you go. So a lot of work has actually been involved in making this work from an aerodynamic standpoint. It still has to be incredibly efficient because that is what Tesla is known for. Again, adding all of this extra weight and not thinking about things like battery size would be detrimental because all of a sudden you lose your driving range. The badge is different down here. So Model Y and then these two extra things. Now, I asked people on my social media, what does this mean? Some people said, you know, it signifies 3 rows, but wouldn't a normal Model Y then just have the Y and that thing? Then some people said it means extra seats, but you only get 1 extra seat because the normal Model Y is 5 seats, whereas this is 6. So, I don't know, a bit confusing. Let me know in the comment section if you understand what that means, because it's still a little bit confusing to me. And then Tesla individual lettering. I love the way that this red light here projects out onto the road at night time. So when you are driving and you put the indicator on and you get that side view, it sort of lights up the back there, and it's just a really cool setup, and it's fun to follow this car at night because it really does stand out from other cars on the road. And you can see what I mean about the rear. It's sort of very, very large and sort of frumpy there as well. But anyway, they achieved the goal of adding all the extra seats, which is the whole purpose of this car existing. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think that they've done a good job here? I'm very keen for your feedback. Do you think it's too expensive? Let me know what you reckon. Okay, so we're inside the Model Y L. Like I mentioned earlier, we actually have already done a video on the second and third row components where I went into a bit more detail. So today, I'm just going to focus on some of the interior changes and the things that we didn't touch on in that first video. So let's start from the top. If you haven't seen the interior here of a Tesla Model Y before, it is all about minimalism. So you've got a screen, you've got a steering wheel, and not much else. They kind of keep all the functions here on the screen, or you can access extra functions here using the steering wheel or with voice recognition. So it's sort of kept fairly basic like that. But it doesn't mean that the functionality is basic. And unlike a lot of traditional internal combustion cars where you've got gear sticks and all that sort of stuff, here in the Model Y, you put your foot on the brake to start it, and then you select your gears here on the screen. So you've got this option of doing it up the top there, or you have the option of auto driving effectively, where the car will detect that you're wanting to reverse or to go forwards or backwards, and it will then subsequently change gears as required, as opposed to you having to do that. So that system tends to work okay. Sometimes it can be a little bit clumsy, but it's, you know, it's cool to see they are innovating and doing something a little bit different there. Also different to other cars on the market, Tesla doesn't use parking sensors. They just use camera for vision around the car. So vision around the car for things like your camera that you can access on demand here, or also for parking sensors. So they use the camera to estimate distances between your vehicle and other objects. Fortunately, it doesn't really work that well. Cameras aren't ideal for that scenario because you have so many limitations for lighting conditions that make a parking sensor something that has been tried and tested a much better option, because parking sensors are able to detect distances more accurately in a variety of conditions and aren't limited to the camera's functionality, especially when you have weather like today where you can get water on the lens and it becomes a little less accurate in terms of estimating distances. Now, in terms of other functions you have here, you've got satellite navigation, and the satellite navigation is great because you can do your satellite view. You can see here at the proving ground, you've got the ability to put traffic up on the screen there as well. You've got the ability to check weather. So, you know, funny, it says it's not raining, but it is. You know, there you go, that's a bit of cloudy stuff. But you've got a lot of functions here on the screen that are built into it. Now, unfortunately, while some of this stuff is free, so connecting into the car with the phone app, which I'll go over in just a second, is free of charge. The extra functions you have to pay for. You get 30 days free when you buy the car, but you have to pay each month to get those functions. So those functions are things like your interactive map here. It comes with a standard map. Otherwise, access to all the connected functions like Spotify, YouTube, etc. All require a paid subscription. Now with Spotify as well, you also have to have your own Spotify account. So even though you pay for premium, you then need to have a Spotify account as well, which you also pay for to get access to that functionality. There is no smartphone mirroring, which is unfortunate because to me, this desperately needs stuff like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. There's just a lot of functions that you can't do at the moment, or you can do, but they're a bit clumsy. Having smartphone integration would fix that. Tesla is between a rock and a hard place though, because to integrate things like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto here, you have to have licensing agreements, which cost money. In addition to that, you're also shoehorned into a minimal amount of display configurations. And what I mean by that is an ideal smartphone integration here would have the whole screen being, you know, Apple CarPlay, for example. But because that can't happen and you only are offered certain variations of screen sizes for smartphone mirroring, you'd probably end up with like this letterbox style thing that would just look a bit clumsy and not very nice. So I can see why they're resisting it, but I think that added functionality is required. They have over time added things like Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, etc. So they're separate apps that you need accounts for, plus premium. So they kind of get around some of those issues. I love this feature. So Grok, that's the AI assistant that Musk has created. And it's great because it works significantly better than the comical integration you have with Apple CarPlay that uses ChatGPT and has now recently switched to Gemini. It just doesn't work. Whereas here, I can, on a long distance drive, just be talking to the car or talking to Grok and just ideating, just getting information on things, learning things. I think it is just such a good and productive way to spend your time behind the wheel to be able to do something other than just listening to music. So now outside of that stuff, the rest of your car settings are in here as well. So this is where you set things like your autopilot, your Sentry mode. So Sentry mode allows you to basically record around the vehicle when you're away from it. So if anyone tries to break into it, it's able to record that information and store it remotely. It's also stored on a USB drive that sits inside the glove box as well. So really great function, and it just means that you're covered there if anything ever happens when you're away from the car. That also integrates a dash cam while you're driving, so that sort of just keeps tabs on what's going on the road. Outside of that, the rest of this stuff can be configured as you go. So this screen has increased in size to 16 inches, slightly larger than a standard Model Y. They've also increased the speaker count from 15 plus subwoofer to 18 with subwoofers. So it means that you're getting an additional 3 speakers here for that immersive sound. The sound system is fantastic, so they've done a really good job with that. I mentioned the app as well. The app is fantastic. So with the Tesla app, you can check the location of the car, you can remotely control the car, you can start and finish charging, schedule charging, you can look at the dash cam footage and the Sentry footage from the car. It really has a number of different options here for you to just be able to interact with the car remotely, and it works about 1,000 times better than every other app on the market. Every other app seems to take an eternity to do anything, whereas this is virtually instant. When you press something on the app, it happens on the car, which I think is great. Now, outside of the screen, the rest of your functions are controlled here on the steering wheel. You'll notice that stuff like headlights is here, so that flashes your high beams. You've got your wipers here as well. And then also over here, you've got the ability to switch the camera on demand, voice recognition, and then this is where you set your autopilot. They have integrated an indicator stalk here, which they removed from Model 3, but it's made a return, which is great because it was just a stupid idea having it on the steering wheel. It works much better having it planted up the top there. Other changes to the front, we've got wireless phone charging that has improved in terms of charging power. So it used to be 30 watts, it's now 50 watts for the driver, 30 watts for the passenger. They've also integrated cooling into this little vent just here, so that cools your phone when it charges. If you don't have cooling, it really overheats the phone effectively, and it degrades the phone's performance, and it just makes it too hot to touch. So having the cooling in there means that this can charge at full pace and not have any dramas. Seats are new as well, so headrests move up and down. You also have extra thigh support down the bottom here. They are very comfortable seats, so they hug you in nicely, and it is just a great car to spend a lot of time in. Long distance driving is very comfy in here with very little complaints from passengers as you go. If we advance then to the second row. Now, second row here is where there's a big difference with Model Y. Yes, you get a third row as well, but the second row is captain's chairs, and captain's chairs means they're basically individual seats with a pass-through in the center to get to the third row. Now, because this car has a longer wheelbase, it means that you're getting extra room there in the second row. Model Y was never short on room in the second row either, but it's great to see that they give you the ability to stretch out and really get comfortable there. Those seats are electrically adjustable. They also have heating and cooling, which is not really a common thing to have in the second row of a car. It's all controlled here on a screen that your passengers have access to. The screen is fine for what it is, but in my opinion, it's something that kids will try and play with and potentially kick and break eventually, and the location of it isn't very useful either. If your kids are watching something on it, they've got to crane their necks to look down. I just think it's a bit of a weird one, but anyway, the screen is there, and you can control all of that functionality from the screen. Thing that I didn't love is the armrest that comes up from the side of the seat when you sit in it. It's automatic. You can sort of put it back down, but it comes up automatically. Problem is, if you have a booster seat or a child seat in there, it can sort of just wedge into the child seat and makes it hard to get the seatbelt in as well. So I'd love to see a function here that allows you to disable that coming up on its own. Great feature to have it come up, but I'd like to be able to say, no, I don't want it to come up for that one. Speaking of customizability for the second row, I love the fact here on the screen that you can actually set door locks and window locks individually. So I can set just the left side to be window locked, or just the right side, or the left side to be door locked. There's a number of different options there, so your kids aren't able to flee the vehicle when you don't want them to. Over to the third row. So third row gets heating as well, which again is just super uncommon. No cooling back there, but it does have heating. It is a little tight back there, so it really is only a kid's zone. You could fit an adult over there, but you have to kind of stretch your legs through the center of the second row to get comfortable. The other concern I have as well is headroom. Headroom is okay, but you're basically butted up against a window. Now today, when it's cold, wet, miserable, not an issue, but when the heat picks up and you get blaring heat running through that window, it can get very hot. You can get an accessory sunblind for these cars, but it just means that it impinges on your headroom a little bit, and you're still going to have heat radiating through that onto your head as well. And finally, cargo space. So back there, they've done a great job across this vehicle and all Teslas really when it comes to cargo space. You've got a frunk that has storage available, so you can stick a whole stack of stuff in there, but it's the boot that's impressive. You've got a magnetic holder for the cargo floor that pops up. You can then load in a stack of things beneath the cargo floor. Now that's useful for things like charging cables, and if you are running out of space in the car to store things, it slips in beneath the cargo floor and you don't have too many dramas. You can then drop the third row to give you a little bit more storage space as well. And finally, you can drop the second row as well. It doesn't quite sit flat because you've got a big hole in the center there for things to fall through. So that is a kind of a wrap here of the interior. It's a pretty impressive setup. They've done a great job with laying this out, and I think that all of these little improvements they've got here throughout the cabin are probably all eventually going to find their way into standard Model Y as well. Hey, before we go for a spin, I thought I'd run you through the battery and charging and all that sort of stuff. So chemistry is NCM, so it is basically a battery that you don't really want to be charging to 100% constantly. The car will give you instructions on where you should charge it to regularly and all that sort of stuff, so you don't need to stress too much about that. In terms of charging, so you've got 11 kilowatt AC, so that's three-phase. You then have 250 kilowatt DC charging, so really healthy charging figures. But the cool thing here with this car is that it's the first Tesla to have vehicle to load, so it means that you can power appliances up to 15 amps out of the vehicle's battery. They don't have pricing yet on the adapter that you need to buy for that, so I think that will be coming soon. The other interesting thing as well, I mentioned before, the battery is bigger, so this is just under 90 kilowatt hours, so a nice big chunky battery, and it means it's going to give you a driving range of almost 700 kilometers on the WLTP cycle, which is a really healthy figure. Before you hit the road, it's worth thinking about insurance. That's why we've partnered with UE for this review. For insurance that's a bit more U-shaped, head to ue.com.au. Well, we've just hit the road in the Model Y L. Probably the first thing I want to mention, just because I can hear it right now. For some reason, well, actually, probably the reason is because you have extra rows of seats and they need to cool/heat those extra rows. But the fan, the climate control fan, is so loud when you have anything from second row onwards active. It just makes a lot of noise here inside the cabin. So yeah, Sean, do you want to flick that off? We'll see if we can hear the difference. So it's like silence compared to the two. So if it is hotter, it is just going to be making an absolute racket inside the car. So just a weird one. I don't know whether they've just oversized the blower to accommodate all that, but it really just needs a little bit more sound insulation, because it's such a nice quiet place to be seated. To just have it overcome by that noise is just a little bit annoying. So outside of that, what are we talking about here? So given this is based on the long range all-wheel drive, what they've done with the bigger battery is given it a stack of pokes. So when you slam the throttle down, it punches you back in the seat. So typically what happens is the bigger the battery is, the more energy they can pull from it suddenly, which gives you the ability to accelerate harder. And that 90 odd kilowatt hour size range for a battery this size means that you are getting really strong acceleration. And it kind of needs it, because given that this is longer, bigger battery, it weighs more. So at around 2,100 kilos, it is a lot of weight to be lugging around. So having that extra acceleration means that it doesn't feel like a slouch at all. Now let's talk energy consumption. I kind of harp on about this all the time, but Tesla has kind of nailed energy consumption. If you look at most other cars on the market, whether it's just that they're not as aerodynamic or don't have as efficient electric motors, they all seem to use a fair bit of energy to stay moving. Tesla, on the other hand, if I pull up our trip meter here and have a look at the longer distance drive, so 100 Ks worth of driving, averaging 14.6 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. If you look at an even further remit there, it's sitting at about 17. But this bit here is important, because we've had the car for a little over 100 Ks, and that means that with our driving, under 15 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks, which is remarkable for a car this size. If you use something like a Volvo EX90 as an example, obviously not a direct competitor to this car, but also a heavy 7-seat electric vehicle, that's using in excess of 20 kilowatt hours per 100 Ks. So it just shows you that they've been able to really fine-tune that formula and give this really decent energy consumption, which means you're going to get realistic driving range of around that 600 kilometer mark. So how do all these controls and stuff work while you're driving? It can be a little bit daunting, but you get used to it eventually. Stuff like, the high beams, being able to flash those, you're only occasionally accessing that. Given you have auto headlights, it's going to do most of the legwork for you. Same with the wipers. When they're set to auto, they just work normally as you'd expect them to. And if you need a single wipe, you just give that a click. Then if you want to move through the different wiping ranges, you then use this little scroll wheel. You can then switch the camera on just by pressing that one. That'll come up at any time just to give you a bit of a view of what's going on. This button will allow you to either speak with the car or interact with Grok. So if we give it a little test here. What is CarExpert?
CarExpert is an Australian website and media brand that gives independent car reviews, news, comparisons, and buying advice for new cars. They're the biggest automotive publisher down under, with videos and tools to help pick the right one.
There you go. Can you tell me, the host of the CarExpert YouTube channel, Paul, is he very good looking or extremely good looking? I'm testing the honesty here.
Yeah, Paul Maric hosts the CarExpert YouTube channel. Attractiveness is subjective, but he comes across as sharp and professional from what I've seen.
Excellent, thank you. Obviously, she can't see anything. She's binary, so. Now let's talk about the ride. I mentioned earlier that this has adaptive damping. One of the biggest challenges electric car manufacturers have with vehicles like this is to get the space inside, you extend the wheelbase. If you extend the wheelbase and have a low center of gravity, and sort of without getting into too much detail, it is tricky to manage bumps in the road when you've got longer distances between the wheels. And that all follows through to things like our sine waves, which are coming up soon as well. So it is a bit of a challenge to make the car handle, be comfortable, and still give you the driving characteristics that are desirable when it is such a big vehicle. So I think they've achieved the comfort side. It is quite a comfortable place to be seated. The move from the previous generation Model Y to the Juniper achieved the comfort with passive damping. That is sort of dampers that are frequency selective, but they're not active like these ones are. And that gave big gains. This feels as good as that without the sort of downsides of having a longer wheelbase. And we've got our sine waves coming up here. I've got it just in the balanced mode, which is basically the split that it gives between comfort and sportiness. So I'll jack this up to 130, which is the speed we do the sine waves at, just to give us a good idea of what body control's like. Look at that, that is fantastic. It is basically just cruising over those sine waves with just no problems at all. So it is a really impressive setup. If I switch us over to the other mode, which is rear comfort, click that over, immediately you notice a difference. So the difference between balanced and rear comfort, they've given it a big delta. So rear comfort really just softens everything out and just gives you more of a luxe, comfortable, sort of lush vibe. And it is the mode you would go for if you are going to be doing primarily city driving and you're not necessarily heading out to the country, because if we go over the sine waves again in just a second in this rear comfort mode, I think we'll find that it has a lot more float to it. There's a little bump just here as well that I like doing on the ride and handling track. Even that's pretty comfortable as well. So you do have a bit of difference there to pick from, and it just gives you that variety in case you want the firmer, sportier ride, or if you want something a bit more comfortable for passengers. Okay, sine waves take to 130 here as well with rear comfort. Let's see what the difference is. As you can see there, you get a whole lot more body movement that's a little uncontrolled. It's just the nature of softening the ride out. It's bound to happen, but you just pick which one you want. Whether you're driving around the city, you go rear comfort, or if you're going to be going on a sportier drive, you go for the balanced mode. Okay, rough road time. I'm going to set this to rear comfort mode. We do this at 90 k's an hour on this road. It is a big old bouncy thing, and this feels very nice. Very nice. All right, we've got our condensed sine wave here. Yeah, cool. Just cruises over that nicely. So yeah, nice one, Tesla. Now, in terms of visibility, it's easy down the front there. The wing mirrors are nice and big too. Visibility out the back is okay, but just keep in mind if you do have passengers in that third row, it is going to be a little crowded back there. I really do wish they would implement like a digital rear view camera, because that would solve the visibility problems out the back, because you can just see down the rear of the vehicle. Given this car has so many cameras, it would make perfect sense to do that as well. So hopefully that is something that they look to sort of implement in the future. On the steering front, you've got a few different modes to choose from there, from comfort standard to sort of heavy. The steering doesn't have a great deal of feel. It's kind of just devoid of feel, and it's quite a fast rack as well, so only minor inputs are required to get the car moving. It feels very darty, but isn't the last word on steering feel. Okay, let's go for a slightly quicker drive around the ride and handling track. Unfortunately, it is very wet out there today, and there's not much I can do about it. And the track is very sketchy when it's wet out here. So I'm going to set it to that balanced mode. We'll just see what it's like through a couple of these corners in the conditions as we have them here. Brake pedal feels good. The regen's actually quite strong, and the single pedal driving here is fantastic in terms of how well that works. The steer there, but it's just the track just has no traction on it. It's actually designed on purpose to be like that, because they do all sorts of testing out here, and by reducing your grip levels mid-corner, they can test stability control and all the other functions that need to be tested. But look, as the speed picks up here, it feels Feels every bit as capable and comfortable as the standard Model Y. There isn't really that much of a difference there between the handling, which is surprising because adding extra wheelbase kind of interrupts the ability for the car to handle like it did previously, but it just shows you that they've obviously noticed that was the case and then fitted it with adaptive dampers to get around that limitation of the size. So yeah, from a handling point of view, I'm pretty happy with how it feels. Even from an acceleration standpoint, you have to have wider tyres to get that power to the ground. And yeah, this kind of has that combo. So we'll give it a punch here on the back straight. Yeah, nice. That is pulling very hard. So yeah, impressive from a handling standpoint here in the wet. Okay, let's do a little bit of performance testing. Battery level, unfortunately, is at 47%, but we're going to do 0 to 100. Go all the way through to 120 and see what those figures look like. So yeah, here we go. Stand on the throttle, nice and sharp acceleration. Alrighty, there's 100 and 120. I think the official number was 5 seconds to 100 or thereabouts. So let's have a little look. 0 to 100 in 5.08 seconds, so pretty much bang on, and 80 to 120 in 2.9 seconds, so really healthy acceleration figure there. It just shows you that it keeps pulling through. It doesn't really hold back, which is excellent. Okay, let's do a stop from 100 k's an hour. It is unfortunately sopping wet out there, so I don't think this will be amazing, but we'll see how we go. All right, there we go. So that is 100 to 0, 3.71 seconds and 51.16 meters. So not an amazing stopping distance, but it is wet and greasy out there. It's actually just a really good indication for you if you're driving just normally when it is wet. Typical stopping distance of this car would be maybe 35 or 40 meters. So you're adding 10 meters to your stopping distance when it's wet. So that's why you should be keeping an extra gap between you and other vehicles when it is raining out there. I know it's very obvious, but you see people tailgating in the wet in like big dual cabs and you're like, what? I mean, your car doesn't stop as it is, let alone when it's wet. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested, we have a spreadsheet with all of our results there, so you can have a look at that one. How quickly does it go in reverse? Well, let's find out. Let's give that a little punch. Oh, there we go. It is 23 kilometers an hour, 24. So Tesla Model Y L, what do we think? Look, I think this thing is absolutely exceptional. Incredible value for money when you look at the interior, the level of luxury, the range, the size of the battery, the space. Like it is a really good family vehicle that just mixes in that sort of luxury passenger element with being practical for a family. So I think they've ticked all the right boxes, and it does what Tesla does really well. It gives you all the tech that you need, the charging speed, the charging network. It really is hard to recommend anything else. So let me know what you think. Do you think that you would spend the extra $6,000 for the range and the space that you get inside, or are you just sticking with a standard Model Y? I'm keen to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below. And hey, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. But until next time, take it easy.